This is my reflection after having done my fluency lesson with my son and daughter, my twins. They're fourth graders by age, but the passage that I chose to use with them was like a second, third grade reading passage, and that was more to accommodate my son, who is our struggling reader. So in the lesson, we started with kind of a warm-up called the digraph and diphthong dash, just to get specifically my son's brain kind of activated with those letter sound correspondence. And so that's why I started with that one, because he struggles a lot with that. When we did the 1-minute test, you'll notice that I started with my daughter first and my son second, and actually at the assessment at the end of the lesson as well. And that was to give him a chance to kind of hear everything from somebody else first. He was super anxious about being filmed, even though he's not even on the film at all. He did much better on, especially given the time constraint. Usually he's a little bit of a slow responder, but he did much better on that digraph dash than I expected him to. So that was kind of exciting. He didn't finish the entire chart. So here's the entire chart. There were 4 at the end that he did not complete or get to at all. Whereas my daughter got to all of them and a few more like in a second round. He missed 4 at the end that he didn't get to, and of the rest of the sheet that he did do, he missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the sounds. One of them being the letter D, which he said buh instead of duh. Again, we suspect that he has dyslexia, so that's not uncommon, and a lot of times in our reading together, he and I, that's a very common mistake that he makes. So we have to a lot of times sit and think about the duh and the buh. He missed the oi sound, OY and OI, which kind of surprised me because we've actually talked about that one a lot recently. But he missed oi twice in the lesson. It actually comes up twice on the chart, and he missed it both times. So, and of course my daughter did fine on all of it. Then we went into the reading passage, and so I read to them aloud so they could follow along. Then we went over the vocabulary we would need, and then we went back to the passage again. You'll notice I did shorten it again because my son was having such anxiety about the lesson. I went ahead and just shortened it to 2 paragraphs instead of the full 4, which was really overwhelming to him, especially even though there's not a lot of text on the page. Without pictures, it really overwhelms him to see that many words in one space. So I think if I were to do that again, I would maybe chunk the passages, not all on one sheet of paper, maybe split them either over 4 separate sheets, or maybe even just divide the paper into quadrants and have like a paragraph here, paragraph there, 3 and 4. And that would kind of visually break up the words so they don't kind of get all jumbled together for him. So I read it out loud to model fluent reading. For my son, I was trying to help him to have that word sound correspondence. For my daughter, I wanted to hear her to hear some expression. She can sometimes be a little bit monotone in her reading, oral reading. Then we went over to the vocabulary. I tried to in a couple of places, like in breakfast and in, where else? In breakfast and in machine. We kind of pointed out some of the sounds that we had seen in the digraph dash, and how those sounds can make, or those letter combinations rather, can make different sounds in different words. Then we went back through and I read it again and let them highlight. They had to have me pause when they needed to highlight a word. So the first word was bakery, so we paused at bakery and they highlighted that. So I'll show you their papers. Their papers look like that. And then I gave them some time to read silently the passage to themselves and kind of mouth those words. Now you'll notice that Gavin, I had him go ahead and read it out to me quietly, and I thought he did a really great job considering he had not seen this passage before today. And then you'll notice when it was time for the assessment, I had Charlotte go first, again, to give Gavin that extra opportunity to hear that word sound correspondence from his sister, who I knew would read like decode all the words accurately, so that she could focus on the expression. And then I went with him next. In his reading, I could tell at that point he was kind of over the lesson, and so he started to get a little bit lazy. He actually did a better job in the like silent reading time that I had with him than he did when I assessed him, just because he was just over it at that point. And I could see his frustration level building, even though he was reading quite well. So he, at one point, instead of reading the word Jill, said Jenny, and I knew he wasn't even looking at the paper at that point. There were a couple parts where he would just skip over words, again, because he's got pretty good comprehension, so he can, usually if he doesn't know a word, he can make a pretty good guess as to what it should say. So the text reads, the baker asked Jill if she would like to get a tour of the kitchen, and he said, the baker asked Jenny, and then I corrected him and he went back and said Jill, if she wanted a tour of the kitchen. So again, it makes sense, it's coherent. So he does have that level of comprehension, but he didn't actually read the words. He just knew kind of what was happening in the story enough to go along. And then he did it a couple other places. Instead of then the baker, he just said the baker told them how he prepared instead of prepares the dough to bake cookies. So it's there, but it's not quite. So that's some of the rationale as to why I chose some of those strategies. Is I really wanted Gavin to hear a lot, like see it on the paper and hear it from me. How effective did I feel my direct instruction was? I mean, it was okay. Look, it was not an ideal setting. Having my kids on a Saturday sit down at the kitchen table and try and read with me, which with Gavin is a struggle. No matter which way you spin it, is going to be a struggle to get him to sit down and read, especially on especially on a Saturday when his friend next door is home and he wants to go out and play. That being said, we are keeping the digraph dash. I actually really like this. I think this is something that he and I could do like every morning while he eats breakfast, just really quickly before he goes to school. He has ELA first thing in the morning when he gets to school anyways. So this would be a nice like morning warm up. And I would love to continue to use that just to kind of remind him of those sounds. I think overall, the lesson was well laid out. I don't know how well I could have executed it in a whole class setting. I've mentioned this before in just direct email with you that I have not taught young kids pretty much since I first got my credential, which was almost 20 years ago. So I'm a little out of practice with younger kids. Teaching reading is a whole new ballgame for me because I was a middle school math teacher for so long and actually really loved it and still love it. But I'm switching over to this because my son needed help reading and I didn't know how to help him anymore. And I can tell you right now that the credential classes I had taken 20 years ago was not enough for me to know what to do to best help him. And so that's actually why I joined this program in the first place, was just so that I could be a better teacher to my son. And so this is all kind of new to me because I am very uncomfortable with this age group. So I need to, this is more than just the direct instruction and the lesson planning and all that. It's getting comfortable with this age group and this type of material. So I always feel a little bit awkward, and I don't know that my direct instruction is that great right now. But I know that it was great in math when I was teaching those classes, and I know that I am a great teacher. So it's just applying it to this new content. It's going to take me some time. It's going to take me some practice, and I need to build my confidence in this as well. The areas of strength in my teaching, I don't know about today, but I think in general I'm a pretty positive teacher. So I hope that, when we turned the camera off and I talked with my son about, well, how do you think it went? I thought he did a great job reading. He left happy, even though he, was kind of over it towards the end. He did leave the table happy. And I think if you can take a struggling reader and have them walk away from a reading situation happy and not frustrated, I think that's a win. So that would be a win in my book. areas that could use improvement and how you might improve them. Like I said, I need to build my confidence. I need to get comfortable with this material because I feel like I'm a brand new teacher all over again, even though I've had years and years of experience teaching. So I think just time and practice, just like when you first start teaching, that's what I need. I think I need to become more familiar with the content, which is going to happen over time, and I need to get out there and do this, whether it's with my own kids. I've got a couple neighbors who I've offered to work with their kids just because I need the practice just as much as the kids do. And so I've actually had a lot of interest from people in my small circle that would love to let me use their kids as guinea pigs so that I can get practice, but it's mutually beneficial for them and for me. So, I think just more practice is what I need.